But welcome everyone, the Arcweave community to my presentation. So adventures in Arcweave Asylum. And I think you all know what Arcweave is. So it's a collaborative online story game design tool. I really like it. I like the visual, like the visuals of it. So I can really see how the story visually looks, where are the branches, and how does the story like flow. And also I like the Arcscript scripting language, where you can like do some game mechanics through that. But I won't stay too much on introducing you all what Arcweave is, because you probably know it. Where did I first learn about Arcweave? I thought I'll include this in this presentation, because I actually learned it in the Game Development World Championships in 2021. Arcweave, I think, was one of the partners or sponsors there. And I was watching this GDVC show, and during the show there were these Arcweave commercials. And I thought that, wow, this is a really cool tool, and I would like to try it at some point. It kind of reminded me of some other tools that I'd also noted before, but yeah, it seemed nice, and this is where I first heard about it and thought that I'm waiting. I would like a chance to use it somewhere interesting. This chance came a couple of years later, when I took this course in Coursera from CalArts, California, from a higher education institution in California. And there it was a game design course about art and concepts, and one of the like homeworks was to create some kind of a narrative and design a prototype for that narrative. This was my first try of Arcweave. So I created some storyline, and I did a prototype in Arcweave. I haven't shared it because it's a bit, I'm not very happy with it. First of all, I also used Midjourney there, which I used in my later stories as well. But at that time, I had this default square images created from Midjourney, and at that point, Arcweave also didn't support audio, so there's no audio in that game. So I thought that I would like it to be better, to be able to share it with more people. But it was a nice try, and then this really got me interested in creating more stories with Arcweave. And to my surprise, there was this Arcjam in 2023 last year, where I wanted to participate, because at that point I had tried to do some things with Arcweave, and thought that let's try to make something even better. The team was Surveillance, and I participated there with a friend with whom we always wanted to make some games together, and who is actually working as a game developer. I'm not. My job is a bit different, but anyway, yeah, we created this night shift at the Stonebrook Asylum game, and we won second place. It was really nice. I also liked very much the winner of that, the game that won that game jam. So if you want a really interesting story that is not night shift at Stonebrook Asylum, then please go check out the first place and other participants there as well. There were some really cool stuff from Arcjam. But this night shift at the Stonebrook Asylum. So, like I said, I made it with my friend Andres, and we had 4 characters: Lily, Ian, Joe, and Mike. We had an asylum setting, so everything took place in an asylum, or like this mental ward, I don't know. And we limited the game time to 6 hours. So when we were like participating in the jam, we were wondering like how to make a game that we can complete and that's scoped well, because we only had these 2 days to make it. So these were the kind of the limitations. So we set the number of characters we wanted, a setting, and limited the temporal, like the time span of the game as well, like how long does the game take place. The inspiration. So where did the inspiration for this come from? Sometime before the jam, I had watched this very bad Netflix series, Red Rose, and in that show, there was this prop, this book here, this Eye of the Panopticon, and it didn't really come into play in the story of that TV show. But it was clearly meant for audience to see, because this guy is like holding it towards the camera, and it's clearly visible, right? But then, like, I googled it, and there is no such book, and then I got interested at what is this Panopticon, and it turned out that it's this prison architecture where you have like a watchtower in the middle, and then cells are around that watchtower. So the guards at the watchtower can observe all of the cells that are around it. So the inmates always know that they're watched. I guess this is how it clicked with that particular TV show, that in Red Rose there was always some evil entity that was watching the main characters. And when we were brainstorming with Andreas about so what are we gonna do, then we had both played this very old game Sanitarium, and this actually also had a Panopticon. So there were these Asylum cells around a watchtower in the middle, and this is, I think, where we took the most inspiration. Even like this guy banging his head against the wall. So this was directly in one of the events in Night Shift that we kind of referenced or like did. So this was one of the inspirations, like what is happening in this Asylum, and well, in the Sanitarium game, that this is just the first level, and the game gets pretty weird so if you play it. So I do recommend to check it out. Another inspiration was Five Nights at Freddy's games. So we thought that what would make like an interesting way for the player to kind of interact with the world, well, they interact with this through these security cameras, or they're like observing the patients through these cameras. And well, this is directly from Five Nights at Freddy's, where you look at the cameras to see what's happening in the area, and of course, like this Night Shift and Five Nights and all of this kind of connects here. Then I'm a really big Stargate fan, and I'll have some other Stargate references later on as well. But in one of the episodes in season 1, the Stargate team got replaced by robots, or by like sentient robots, and these replicants didn't know that they were robots. They were thinking that they're the person there, the characters themselves. And went to like do their everyday missions and things, but then things started to go wrong, and then they found out that they were robots. So we wanted to play with this idea that in Night Shift the player doesn't know that they're an AI, and they will only learn it in the end, or like the main character is an AI. And this was the main thing that also kind of inspired the story, that what are these like sentient AIs, or how would a sentient AI come to be? So what is the birth of a sentient AI? How would they see the world? Do they know right away that they're an AI, or do they have some kind of I don't know if coping mechanism is the right word, but some kind of a different way to see at the world before they actually know that they're an AI. And this is where the endings also came from, that if you're like trying to become, or if you're becoming, let's say, a sentient AI, then maybe this process kind of fails, and then you go back to being just a regular computer program. Then this is this drowned ending where really didn't like evolve enough, let's say. But then also we can play around with this AI concept. So if you're becoming an AI, what kind of an AI are you becoming? Are you kind of this guardian angel, benefactor of humanity, AI that is the good AI, or are you becoming like this dedicated servant that knows that they're sentient, but then does what their programming tells them, or follows some set of like specific rules. This is kind of the neutral ending, or are you becoming this very commonplace killer rogue AI like Skynet that tries to destroy all of humanity? So depending on the choices in Night Shift, of course, you can become many of these in the end. So that's pretty much about Night Shift. After the jam, I was very pleased to see that the Arcweave organizers created these Monday prompts. So every Monday there was this new prompt, and you could make a new story based on these prompts alone. And I feel like this is a very good like challenge for creative people. There are, of course, tons of these challenges in different fields, different creative fields as well. But it really gave me an opportunity to experiment with different like story structures, different ideas, and also a bit more with Midjourney and Arcweave as well. So I created these 8 short stories or games. I didn't include the walk because, well, this was the first one I made, and I felt a bit that it's not that I was just getting warmed up, so kind of skipped that when I put the links in one of the chats. But other ones, let's discuss a bit about the other ones as well. So for the whole, the setting was something like an intimate moment between two characters, and the theme was curse, which can be a twist or the setup of the scene. So being a big sci-fi fan, I started thinking, so what would be like this curse, this inevitable situation you're kind of cursed with, so you cannot escape it, and it gets worse and worse. And maybe you're not alone in this situation, so an intimate moment between two characters. So that would be like this moment or this interaction there. So I went for this idea of like falling into a black hole, because that's, I guess, one of the most inevitable things in our universe. So when you fall into a black hole and you cannot get out of it, and you just keep falling and things. And my story kind of structure also followed this spiral descent into a black hole. Which is like I said, what I really like about Arcweave, that you can really see the visual overview of the story you made. Inspiration. So there are some videos in this presentation, but I'm gonna mute the sound. So there is this other TV series, Dark Matter, which is by some of the same creators that created Stargate. So there, this android character ends up in the future. So welcome to the end of time. So here we have this character that got transported into the future, and she asks that what happened to the stars. So it's kind of pitch black there. And this other character responds that they're in a place where the stars are few and far between and a long way from home, and this is the future. So what this reminded me of was the heat death of the universe. So you're so long in the future that all the stars are died out, and there is no more new stars being generated, and everything's basically either degraded into black holes, or even the black holes could at some point become extinct. But I was thinking about this particular scene in this TV series, and it could also very well be that they're just in the middle of some distant galaxies. Like they're not just in a galaxy where there are nearby stars, but they're in between a couple of galaxies. But at the moment when I created the whole, then this was kind of the inspiration that this heat death of the universe that I wanted to put this in, and this is like a truly inevitable scenario that you're falling into this black hole, and because of time dilation, even if you were to get out, there would be no more universe left to return to, and everything would be gone already. Next. Then the story number 3 was the bet. So the setting was Dungeons and Dragons bet, some kind of a situation involving betting a fantasy creature, and the theme was control. So this can be, of course, interpreted in different ways. And I was thinking about, so what is this? What could I have like a Dungeons and Dragons pet? And one of the iconic characters or creatures in Dungeons and Dragons is of course the mimic. So I wondered that, okay, maybe this could be a pet. They're a bit evil, and maybe the idea of control is that this pet is kind of like controlling you, or like not like forcefully, but you want to like they're your pet, so you want to care for them. But this also involves the control, like the pet is hungry, and if you don't feed it, if you don't feed the mimic, then well, they're gonna eat you maybe. So that was the idea I had there. The narrative structure was a bit more gamified. So you end up in this tavern, and you have different choices on how to act, what to do in that tavern to feed your pet, the mimic. And well, there are different endings and different choices kind of feed the mimic a different amount. So you have to make sure that they're full before you leave, otherwise they might eat you the next time you rest. And I also wanted to include different like iconic Dungeons and Dragons things, like the mage hand, and there was this Stone of Silence, and it was, I wanted to experiment with these D&D mechanics and see how can you involve them in this particular story to make it more interesting for the player. And well, here's a mimic, so it's a chest, right? But when you open it, then it's actually a creature trying to eat you. So excuse me. So that's basically what a mimic is. That they mimic these different objects, usually to lure adventurers in and then eat the adventurers. But in D&D, you can have like these kind of, I wouldn't say maybe not low intelligent, but not that sentient creatures, but more like these creatures that don't have too much thought. They just want to eat adventurers. But you can have these exceptional creatures that are more intelligent and see the world a bit more than just eat and survive. So this was something that I had for the pet in the pet story, that this particular mimic is not just a monster in a dungeon somewhere, but that they're more intelligent and try to survive in the outside world. Then story number 4 had a very interesting setting and theme. So surface of the sun was the narrative's location, and the theme was repetition. So I really struggled with that one. So the setting is like surface of the sun. So what can you do at the surface of the sun? There isn't like too many things you can do there. And the theme was repetition. So what could be repeating on the surface of the sun? And I would have really loved to see like other interesting creative ideas for this particular setting and theme as well. Another thing I experimented with in this particular story was having these characters kind of as cutouts. So I had a few characters there which I wanted to put at different locations. So in Midjourney, I find it really difficult with generative AI to have a specific character and have that specific character in different locations, with different expressions and so on. So I created the character separately from the background, and then tried to figure out like if I can have these more like this visual novel style that you have a background and you have a character as separate images. The story, if you played it, you know it's a time loop. So I have these 3 loops basically. There are some interactions, so you can interact with one of the characters, and I don't know if that interaction actually changed something or not, but it did maybe gave some variation to the story, and gave a bit more agency for the player to make the choices they want to make. But otherwise, yeah, it's this time loop. It basically follows this structure that you wake up, you eat, you do your rounds, you work, and the ship is destroyed. So the surface of the sun idea was that you're on a spaceship and you fly into the sun, and then the ship explodes. And repetition is, well, there is this time jump mechanic where you go back like a day before or a few hours, or it's quite unspecified in the narrative, that you can maybe try to avoid the ship being destroyed. The inspiration for this came from Stargate. So in this season 10, episode 20, they're on a spaceship. It's getting destroyed by aliens, and Carter here activates this technology that kind of freezes this ship just at the moment before the moment it's destroyed. It freezes it in a time bubble. So you can see this final laser blast went to destroy the ship, and then basically for the characters on the ship, the outside world kind of froze, and now they are in this time dilation bubble, and they can live a lot more. Like they have a lot more time to come up with a solution to the imminent destruction and imminent problem. So this was the idea that maybe the ship in the Dust narrative also has this kind of a fail-safe mechanic that when the ship is destroyed, there's this automatic fail-safe that creates this time loop that takes the crew back a day where they can come up with a solution for not getting destroyed. But then I figured that okay, so this is what the ship does, but maybe something goes wrong. So in a narrative, always something has to go wrong, right? So the system malfunctions, and the crew of the ship doesn't actually remember that they were transported back in time for this state. And it's kind of glitchy, so most of them don't remember, but in some specific loops, some characters do remember. This is kind of similar to this other very common theme in sci-fi, that there is this repetition of some amount of time. So in another episode in season 4, episode 6, the planet Earth also got stuck in this time loop, and it repeated over and over again. And every time the loop started, they didn't even remember that they were in a loop. So they just relived the same day over and over again without remembering. Some specific characters did remember, and then they tried to explain to everyone that no, we're in a time loop. I guess it's this idea from Groundhog Day. I haven't actually seen Groundhog Day. I probably should, but it's usually like this is the main inspiration for these kinds of loop stories. So yeah, this was the Dust that the characters are looping. Some characters at some time loops may have like memory of some previous time loops, and it's quite glitchy. And then you only have maybe a limited number of these loops before the ship is destroyed, because the ship itself continues like degrading all the infrastructure and systems there are degrading, collecting dust. There's lots of dust always there, and then the characters are starting to wonder like how could the ship get so decrepit in just like, I don't know, a day, but they don't really know that they've actually experienced the same day like years and years. So this was this repetition on the surface of the sun. Story number 5 was the Carnival. So the setting was horror amusement park, and the element was charm. And here I also experimented with these cutouts of characters on different backgrounds. I tried to give them this differently colored halo. So different characters have this different halo, kind of making them more recognizable or unique. But the main inspiration before we get to the inspiration, so the story was, or the narrative structure was here quite linear, but I did wanted to give one choice here. So there are 2 of these larger branches, and they end up at the same place, but you can see a different character in these different branches. So this was what I added here. But the main inspiration was, of course, like World of Darkness and vampires. So this Vampire the Masquerade games and the World of Darkness universe has these vampires that have different powers. There are these vampire clans, and each member of the particular clan has different powers. So some are more have powers that seduce humans, luring them away with seduction to feed upon. This is what happens in the Carnival as well. Some are just exceptionally strong. Some have this presence or this way of dominating the minds of mortals with just being there and talking. So I wanted to experiment with these interesting powers that different vampires might have. Also, there is this little girl at the end of the story. So I wanted to leave it vague purposefully. So after the Carnival has left, you wake up at this field. It's an overcast, cloudy day, and there is this little girl who questions you about what happened. And I was wondering that this little girl could be like this very powerful vampire that could perhaps walk around at daytime, and they're there to see if you're gonna basically break the masquerade, or are you gonna tell everyone that there are vampires in the world and they're feeding on people, and then convinces the main character that no one would believe you anyway, and so it's the main character comes to a conclusion that they cannot people would think they would be crazy if you would tell everyone that there are vampires. Right. So story number 6 was the chip. The setting was afterlife, and the element was lying. So something about afterlife and some lies about the afterlife. So the narrative there is quite linear. So it's this linear idea that I had. I didn't want to put too many choices there because that would make it a bit more complicated, and I thought that for just this prompt, I only have like a day or something to do it, so I just made a linear story of an idea. And the idea is that, there is this digital afterlife. So your consciousness gets copied to a server somewhere, and then you are in this digital afterlife as a digital consciousness. And the twist that something is lying was that your understanding of how this digital afterlife would be turned out to be, or like, let's say the player's understanding. So if you imagine like a digital afterlife, so maybe it's fun and you can interact maybe with your living relatives and just be happy and stuff. But the twist here is that as a digital consciousness, you might not even feel you might not even have emotions. So you could be put to work solving these captcha puzzles for some greater purpose somewhere. Some technology that solves these captchas in the web, but you are actually the one who solves them as a digital consciousness in the afterlife, and you don't really care because you're not human anymore. So maybe you don't have these human emotions that you used to have, or these feelings and desires. It's similar to the Matrix, so there is this digital afterlife, or this digital world that you can be at, and things are different there. But also there was this movie Other Life, where again humans could be transported to this digital world. But not when they die, but they just put something in their eyes, some eye drops, and then they go into this virtual world. And in Other Life, they played with time dilation again. So this digital afterlife could run at a faster speed than the real world. And this is actually one of these futuristic or futurism ideas, that if we could create a fully digital society and run it on a server that can run somewhere, then we can run it faster than the time that we experience in the real world. And this means that we could actually experience more time as a society or a civilization than the universe has limited us to. So if we end up at the heat death of the universe, then we actually have had more time than the actual time. It's a bit hard to explain, but this was one of the ideas that I also wanted to incorporate here, that if you're in this afterlife, then these things, these captures that you're solving, or these AI puzzles, then this could happen at a really fast rate, and your relatives could maybe want to contact you in, I don't know, in a month, but during that month you might have already needed to solve lots of these problems there. And like I already explained, like the human consciousness becoming a software program. So if we could create this digital consciousness or copy ourselves there on the cloud, then would that consciousness feel the world the same way we do? And it's probably not. Now it's a bit of a different thing here is that I actually showed these stories at an expo. So I talked about this in one of the chats, that I showed these stories at an expo and collected some feedback. And one of the participants gave me a lot of feedback. They filled their small feedback sheet up with different references and ideas. And they referenced Black Mirror and also Soma. So I was familiar with Soma, but I hadn't watched Black Mirror, these particular episodes, before creating this story. I watched them yesterday, and I would like to say that in these, the digital consciousness, especially in this San Junipero, where there is this digital afterlife where you can go to and live a happy life at, kind of assumed that the person who is copied there still is like the same person with same emotions and feelings, which might not be the case, but we don't know. In Soma, the consciousness is copied, and it's more about like if you're copying it to something in the real world, and then there are like two instances of you in the real world, and how is this like is this ethical? And if you implement something like teleportation, then teleportation would be a copy made of you in another location, but then the original is gonna get destroyed because, well, then you're teleported to a separate location. But I think these ideas kind of, well, they relate to the chip, but they weren't like that much what inspired me there. But certainly very interesting ideas and lots of interesting sci-fi to play with. Story number 7 was The Mouth. The setting was in the desert, and the emotional element was past trauma. And well, in the desert. What better desert to take than the largest one we have, Antarctica, or the Antarctic, and past trauma. Then I was wondering, like, I think you can all see the inspiration is from the Thing. But what if the events of the Thing had already happened, and you are a survivor that goes back to the location with some military personnel to figure out then what actually happened there. It's kind of similar, and I haven't put this as an inspiration, but it's similar to the Alien movies, I guess, where you go back to see what the tragedy was about. So this past trauma is the past trauma of a survivor that went through some horrible events in the Antarctic. The story is structurally linear, but I wanted to play around with different perspectives in the story. So actually, all of these are from the perspectives of different characters. And so first we have I think it was the survivor or maybe the captain. Then we have one of the soldiers who is at one location. Then we have a soldier who is at another location. Then we are back to the viewpoint of the survivor of the past tragedy, and I wanted to play around, like, how can I create a narrative and tell it through perspectives of different characters. And it's all like going on in sequence, so it's not that the player is reliving the same event from the perspective of different characters, like in some of the other stories, but it's like progressing through time, and then at certain locations the player kind of switches to another character. One of the issues I had there, or not issues, but things I had to consider, was that Midjourney's community guidelines say that there should be no adult content or gore. But well, I wanted to create this like horror action story, so I wanted some gore in it, some horrible visuals. So I went directly to Stable Diffusion and generated these gory images, although maybe they're not as gory as maybe I would have wanted, but still with Stable Diffusion directly. So that's also an option to create concepts for your ideas. And of course, yeah, the Thing was one of the main inspirations there. And the last story was the Hound, story number 8. So the setting was a car chase. The element was protection, and in this story I didn't use Midjourney. I used an artist, a real world artist. So Olev's art is an artist in Estonia, and she drew the images for this story. It was also like a big challenge for her, because we wanted to complete this in like a day, because for these Monday prompts and these limited creative challenges, it's important to get it done as quickly as you can, because if you keep spending too much time on it, then you won't get it done. There's gonna be a new Monday prompt, and then you just have a lot of unfinished projects in a folder somewhere, and that no one ever sees. So it was also a challenge for her to create these quick drawings within the time we had. I wanted to experiment with one of the game mechanics I saw in the jam. So in Arcjam, one of the contestants had this very cool, or participants had this very cool game where there were audio cues. Like, I think you had to follow someone, and they had the visuals showed like a metal floor, a wooden floor. Maybe there was a carpet. I don't remember the details, but then you had to hear the footsteps on different materials, or that maybe the doors were different, and you had to hear like what door could have made what sound. And then they also played around with the spatial direction of the sound. So if the sound was coming from the left, then you had to follow the person you were chasing to the left. If the sound was coming from the right, then right was the correct choice. And I wanted to see if I could do something similar. And here I played around with that. So the story is that your dog has run away, and you have to listen to them barking and then make the correct choice. Like, do you turn left? Do you turn right? Do you go forward? And then catch the dog. The inspiration for this actually came from a vacation we had. So we went to Saaremaa. So Saaremaa is this resort island, I guess, or this big island popular with tourists in Estonia. There are lots of very nice things there. And we went there actually for my nephew's wedding. And then the story of the dog, or the hound, came from my uncle. So my uncle told us a story where this actually happened. They had the same hound that we had in the game, and that dog ran away to chase a deer based on this hunting instinct, and then my uncle had to run after them and listen to the barking and try to find where the dog went through a forest. But then like, we were wondering, so what happens like if you miss the dog? And we put these cool locations that we experienced in Saaremaa into the story. So if you miss the dog, then you end up either at this lighthouse that's in the water, or this field with sheep, or some other locations. Right. So I guess what I want to say here is that you can get inspiration from different things. Of course, all these movies and TV series, books, stories that other people have written, and maybe you don't like explicitly think about these inspirations even, but somehow this, if you're creative, then these ideas kind of come to you, but they probably come to you from some things that you have experienced. And also taking trips to interesting locations can really nurture your creativity and give you a lot of inspiration that you wouldn't otherwise get.